to track your brand health, and mainly how to translate the brand numbers into your sales and business numbers, because we believe that's the essence of brand tracking. Somehow it's not framed this way, but we definitely want to be talking a lot about how brand building and brand tracking helps your business. A couple of words about us. We're Behavio. We're building apps for marketers, mainly brand tracking and ads testing. We also have a cool ads testing app, but today we're going to be talking about the brand tracking. We're always trying to be, in whatever we do, to be really practical, meaning we bring helpful, concrete insights, what to do next, concrete takeaways, not some research jargon on 100 slides. Thanks to the automation, we were able to make it radically affordable, I would say, compared to the traditional prices. And we're rock solid, using the modern methods that are better to translate, to predict the sales effect of the brand numbers, and like using the subconscious and other methods that are better. And yeah, we're happy and proud to be trusted by over 500 brands all across Europe and the US to help them improve their brand marketing. I would be happy if you connect with me on the LinkedIn. I'm trying to post there some interesting news and figures about advertising effectiveness, brand building, and others. So be really happy to connect with you, and also to see what are your problems, what you're up to, and things like that. As for today, we start with really briefly what is brand tracking, so that we'll make sure that everyone is on the same page. But then my favorite part is about predicting and boosting sales through tracking. Then we're gonna have a short look on the latest trends in the brand tracking, mentioning subconscious metrics, the use of AI, automation, and things like that. And finally, the Disney Plus brand tracking case study, the real data about the streaming platforms, because we, as in our normal work for the clients, also today we want to be practical, not just theoretical, so you can see the real results from this cool case study. Okay, before we start, make sure you should already see this next to me. But if you're watching through some different device, you may have a look on this slido.com. Use this code and type down any questions you have during the whole webinar. At the end, we're going to have a session for your questions, and I'll be happy to answer anything I can. Let's start then. Really briefly, what is brand tracking? Sometimes social listening or social media listening is also referred to as brand tracking. So I would love to make a crucial distinction here, because social media listening is basically telling you what is being said about your brand on the internet. It's a great tool, especially for PR teams or social media teams, to be able to respond really quickly on whatever is happening, to be up to the conversations. But frankly, it could be really misleading for the big strategic decisions about the brand. And that's because the people who have time to discuss brands on internet are typically somehow weird, somehow different from the bulk of your addressable market, and it's definitely not representative. So if there's a request for a feature, if there's a potential PR case, and you're trying to, sometimes you can overreact because there's hundreds of people bringing up some issue, but if you really look representative at your market, both buyers or future buyers, it's typically less than 1% of people who even know about the thing. So social media listening is great, but it's a different tool. It's definitely more tactical. And brand tracking, on the other hand, is really some like strategic overview of what is happening on the market and with your brand. So to do that, the best way is to use representative samples and surveying people that are representative to your category buyers. So typically it's the whole national population in a given market, or it can be just women if that's your category buyers, and using quotas like gender, sub-regions, age, or socioeconomic status. So you can get a pretty representative overview, and you can be sure that, for example, your brand awareness within the potential buyers is 40% and not 50, and that's a really rock solid way how to know that. And I'm specifically mentioning potential buyers. Obviously, you can measure your current buyers as well, but as we'll see in a while, it's much more important what your possible potential future buyers know or think about you. That's what you should be mainly looking at in the brand tracking. So basically, typically, what you get from the brand tracking is your market size, whether in the percentage of the like a percentage of the population or even the actual numbers, brand awareness and the variance of brand awareness, like salience or mental market share. We're going to be talking about that in a while. Then also you get your penetration, or the percentage of the buyers from the whole category buyers that already buy you, because that is something you typically don't know from your sales figures, as you don't know whether it's more people buying you less often or it's just a few people that buy you really often. So you can also learn this from brand tracking. Then you typically measure some perceptions or brand attributes, whether you're fast or who is fast actually on the market, who is perceived as fast or affordable or whatever is important at your for your product. And as the metrics above, the key metrics, also these attributes are typically measured in comparison to your rivals, to your competitors. So also brand tracking helps you like stay tuned in what's happening with your rivals. If someone is really growing and being aware soon that they're doing something right, then you should learn from it, or being happy that they're like stable and not growing that much. Finally, also this part that people love on social media listening is more and more becoming the part of the brand tracking, but in this case it's representative, so it's even it's more you're getting the spontaneous associations that people have about your brand, but can be the future buyers, the people who are not that active online. So you get this inspiration or idea what are the things that are first coming to their minds when they think about your brand. And that's it for the brief idea of what brand tracking can be. Later we're going to see our app and the Netflix case study. Now let's go to the part that I really love to talk about, and that is predicting and boosting sales through tracking. And let's start with really the general. Let's start like what are the possible ways, the theoretical ways to grow your business. It's obviously penetration, making more people buy you. Can be price, making your buyers pay more. Can be frequency, you're making current buyers buy you more often. And can be loyalty, so you're trying to retain more customers than before. Theoretically, it all sounds great, but in reality, only the first one, the penetration, is a major sustainable way to grow big. It's because there's an inherent problem with all the others, and most often it's because they somehow are a function of the penetration. Let's start with the frequency. The problem with frequency is that almost everyone is a light buyer. So, and this has been, this is like our data from a couple of industries, but this has been repeatedly measured by marketing scientists in every industry. And typically, almost everyone is a light buyer, meaning that they buy your product not very often. They buy it once a year or once in a couple of years. And the people who buy the product really, really often, it's really few percent of the people. And it's really hard to make people buy you more often. So it's definitely, if you compare the penetration strategy, the penetration is much easier and much more effective in terms of how much you invest in it and what you get from it. The problem with loyalty is that loyalty is in fact a function of penetration. This is called double jeopardy law in marketing science. And basically, again, this is for every possible industry. It works the same. And it says that you're always going to lose quarter to quarter a lot of your buyers. And the bigger brand you are, the less buyers you're going to lose. So the big brand, if you're like over 30% of the penetration, you're approximately going to lose about 30% of your buyers. If you're a small brand, that's why the double jeopardy, you're small and your loyalty is even lower. You're going to lose approximately 70% of the people. So basically, if your strategy is loyalty, the best thing to grow your loyalty would be to grow the penetration first, and the loyalty would go with that. So if we want to grow by penetration, how do we do it? And there's a good news, again, some interesting correlation, this time with brand awareness, meaning that if you want to penetrate the market, you should concentrate on building awareness. And as you can see here, if you're like small brand with penetration around 10%, the healthy ratio is like 3.5. So your awareness must be significantly higher than your penetration if you want to grow. And if you manage to increase your awareness, you can expect that your penetration is going to grow in a couple of months, in 6 months, in 12 months. It depends on the market. And the reason for this, as we've seen, is that most of the people don't buy that often. So there's always some time between the moment in time when you manage to increase your awareness and in between when all of the people who've seen your campaign went into the market, because most of the people are out of the market at any given time. So that's why it takes so much between the sales figures to hit after you were able to manage to increase your awareness. There is a concrete case study from our great client, Happy, one of the fastest growing online therapies in Europe. And as you can see from their revenue here, they were kind of plateaued last year because they were using performance marketing strategies only, and they kind of hit the ceiling when most of the people who were actively looking for the online therapy online already used them, and they weren't growing anymore. That's why they decided that they want to have their first TV campaign, brand building campaign. They invested in it. They started in the spring last year, and during the campaign, in 3 months, they were able to grow their awareness by 100% from whatever 13% to 26 or something like that. And within few months, as you can see, after the long period of no growth, they were able to see a 50% growth in sales. And yeah, that's it. It really works like that. They were able to have a positive ROI within 6 months. So they got the money back within 6 months, and now they're preparing other campaigns because it works. So that's it. Let me say a couple of words to how to build your awareness, because it can mean a little bit different things depending on whether you're a small brand or a big brand, because you really want to start with the prompted awareness. That's the easiest thing to build, and you need it at the start, and then you go to more sophisticated ways of brand salience, to mental market share. And then when it's becoming really interesting, because those measures are really correlating very precisely with your actual market share. What is it? Awareness is basically you showing a logo or a brand name, and you're asking people whether they've seen this brand. What it helps to do, it helps to build the trust to the brand, because anything we've already seen is easier for our brain to process, and we're having better emotion about that. So basically, just knowing the brand helps get rid of this barrier of low trust. And for example, in a search engine, if you already have this prompted awareness and you're on the second or third place in the search engine results, you're going to be clicked on much more often than if there's someone paying a lot for the first place, but they have no brand awareness. So that's like the first step in building the brand awareness. But there's a second step called brand salience, which means that your brand is, in this case, spontaneously popping up in your mind when you think about a concrete category or occasion. So we start with the category, typically, hey, I'm a restaurant, so what chains of restaurants you think about. But then the more important part is when you start to focus on the concrete occasions, because in every category there's typically more occasions, and that's like a different memory structure in the brain, and you need to connect this your brand with the different occasions one by one to grow your brand, to grow the brand awareness. So there can be like different brands that are popping in people's head if they want to eat with kids, or if they want to throw a party for kids or whatever. And it's basically based on whether you invested a lot into building this link between a specific occasion and a brand. So that's like a second step after you've managed to build your prompted awareness, to start with the most promising occasion and invest in building the link with this occasion. And when you're a really big brand, you can get to something which is called mental market share. It's in a situation when you already have a huge budget to have a couple of different campaigns a year and basically build your brand connection, the links, the memory links between most of the occasions that are important in your market. So in this case, could be, I want to eat with kids, I want to have a breakfast. As you know, like 20 years ago, no one would think about McDonald's when thinking about the breakfast, but they made the product for that, and they invested a lot in this communication. So now, like a lot of people, when they want to have a breakfast, they spontaneously think of McDonald's. Can be throwing a children party. And what mental market share is basically you take into account the business opportunity in a given occasion. So perhaps breakfast is much more people who want to have breakfast willing to pay more for it than people who want to throw a children party. So it's not the same, but if you weight it, so this weighted salience, and then you have a different salience if in every on these occasions, and this weighted number is the mental market share, and that is something that is really predictive to your actual market share. So you can be hella sure that if you manage to increase this mental market share in 6 months, in 12 months, in some categories 2 years, as cars or something like that, but you will always grow if there is no significant barrier, which is a different part that also brand tracking can tell you. But if there is no real barrier, meaning that people hate you for some reason, building this connection, this simple connection, just a memory connection, hey, this situation and the brand, that is how you grow. Okay, so that was for the understanding of the relation between brand metrics and sales metrics. And now let's look into some of the latest trends in the brand tracking tools. I'm gonna mention some of the subconscious metrics, and then obviously AI and automation and stuff like that. Let's start with the subconscious. The problem with brand tracking, especially with the traditional approach, was always, hey, it's just surveys. And the problem with surveys is typically not the samples, because they're almost everyone can manage to have a representative sample. The problem is more that you answer, that you ask people, and when you're asking people, when you're surveying them, they typically use the different part of the brain than the part they use in actual decisioning, because 95% of our decisions are subconscious. As you've seen, that's the case of the brand salience. So basically, within milliseconds, you're just retrieving a memory connection between an occasion and a brand, because we don't have time to decide like rationally about every single purchase decision within a day. There's like 45,000 items in an average supermarket. So if we were to use the system to compare or the weigh-ins, we would just die out of hunger before we could get to the cash desk. So that's why we use this system one, very fast subconscious memory retrieval basically. And the typical way how to do brand tracking, where these question metrics is basically a lot of lines for every brand, and then those 1 to 5 possibilities to answer whether the brand is really fast or somehow fast or whatever. And people are using the system too, the slow rational thinking for this, which is not what they use in their actual decision making. And what it creates in the data is that it's making the data really flat and actually inaccurate, because as you can see in this example, real data of 2 e-commerce companies, Mall and Alza. One is the market leader, really big, the other is quite small brand, and the brand associations, brand attributes are almost the same here. It's really flat, so you don't get any information about the actual memories about the brand that people had prior to the survey. And you don't want to have this, because this is basically inaccurate data. The new way to do this, or it's been around for a couple of decades in the marketing and like behavior science actually, but now it's finally getting a new standard for how to ask for brand attributes under this implicit association test. Basically, it uses like randomized couples of brands, associations, and it's measuring the reaction time. There's also a time pressure with these random pairs, but we measure how fast are you able to tell, hey, this is perhaps not a KFC. And sometimes you're like really slower, and if you're slow, we know that it's not a part of your system one thinking. So this is a new way that creates much more rock solid, much more accurate data, and really tells you what people had in the memory prior to the actual brand tracking survey. Okay, next trend, AI and automation. Obviously, there's a big talk about whether the synthetic panels are going to take over the brand tracking. I'm not that sure about that, because I already mentioned that in the beginning. There's a huge difference in between the social media listening and the brand tracking. One is the brand tracking is representative, and the AI has the same problem. So basically, the only source of the data, it's not about intelligence, it's more about the information. And the only information that AI has is what is mentioned about your brand online, which is an important part, but it's not all. And that's why I believe that the survey-based brand tracking is gonna be around for a long time. But there's a lot that actually how AI can help brand tracking. The first thing is that together with the automation, it's basically making tracking radically affordable. So it used to, the typical brand tracking study used to be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in the US, not that much in Europe, but still a lot. For example, in our case, you can start with a couple of thousands of dollars a year to get a lot of information. And that's because there's no one creating 100 slides presentation and analyzing the data. It's all done in a perfect way, but with AI and automation. And what also AI helps with is specifically the qualitative insights. That wasn't typically a part of brand tracking, it was more quantitative data, the figures, but more and more you can see word clouds or the verbatims because AI can help to analyze this data and get you something that is helpful and insightful without humans being involved. Last news, I totally recommend reading this book. It's like a little bit science-y, and frankly, we mentioned a couple of things from this book already in the first part of this webinar. But if you're more into reading through the dense texts, I'd definitely recommend this book on brand tracking. There's a lot of detail about this mental market share, brand salience, and others. And also, on the other hand, a lot about the outdated or overstated metrics as brand emotion, NPS, and others, which have some specific role, but they're not as important when considering the brand's growth. So, totally recommending this book by Jenny Romaniuk, Better Brand Health. Okay, and now let's switch into our platform and have a look on how the data and insights and stories from brand tracking can look like. In this case, we're having here some brands like streaming brands, Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and others. And as you can see here, you can switch in between the actual numbers of the people or the percentage. So you can see that the whole category is growing. Within the last 6 months, there was like almost 1 million new people entering the category. That is always great news. In this case, Amazon didn't manage to raise the awareness, the total awareness. So there's still quite a space for a growth in the total awareness, but they managed within those people who were already aware to raise their salience. That's great. For, as you can see, the users were growing similarly. It's pretty close, and we can see further if there is some more clues why this happened and what they should do next. If you look into this association page, you see in this case of Amazon Prime that they managed to build up the association with high quality content and high quality picture and sound. And so perhaps that is something that has something to do with growing the awareness. As you can see, they were the only ones to grow that fast within the period. And we were already talking about the qualitative data. So here you can get some more insights on maybe why they're more associated with high quality content. And they were introducing some of the new original series to their Fallout. So as you can see here, people were already mentioning Fallout or Stargate series or Lord of the Rings or whatever. So basically, yeah, that's it. You can get from a couple of figures, you can get a pretty solid story about, hey, there's a new player growing faster than others. Apparently this is driven a lot by this quality of content, and you can already spontaneously, which is always the best, know what are the best, most salient TV shows on the platforms. And yeah, that can be somehow seeing that what you're doing is working and understanding what to do next. And you could go into the similar details with lots of other competitors here, comparing really every association and things like that. There's also a timeline. This time just we measured this just twice, so not much more information here. And there's also some information about the profiles of both the whole category. So you can see that the streaming platform users are still very young. There's almost no one over 65 years. And you can compare it to the brand buyers of a specific brand, like Netflix in this case. So you can see, and the population is also younger compared to the population. If you compare it to the category users, you see that the age is almost the same. It seems that the people who are using Netflix are a little bit more educated. Perhaps the people who are less educated and using streaming platforms are using some different vendors. Again, this can be something to consider when you think about the targeting of your next campaigns and things like that. Okay, so that's it. A brief intro into the dashboard of a brand tracking. We're almost done, so make sure that you ask for anything you want to know in Slido. And before we go to the answers, just let me shortly tell you about our plans. If this was interesting for you, if you would like to try the platform, perhaps switch from other vendors. Some of the brands are even running this in parallel. They're having whatever global solution for brand tracking, but still they want to have, as this is really affordable, some bigger detail in parallel for example, like Lego does with us, tracking just the perceptions for girls, and for buying gifts for Lego as gifts for girls, you can have a brand tracking as specific as that, or for some private labels, if you're a grocery store or whatever. So for that, we basically have 2 tiers. Obviously, it can be a little bit customized if needed, but like 95% of our customers are actually happy with one of those 2 tiers. The starter, basically tracking you and 2 competitors for the tracking the metrics that are relevant for smaller brands like awareness. And then the Pro, that's what you've just seen with the Amazon and Disney and Netflix, tracking more competitors, tracking attributes, having the spontaneous associations. Also, what's really important, that you have a research expert on a call when you want them for consultations. Okay, I think that's all from our side, and now let's get to your questions. So, the book does not recommend to serve it through System 2 reaction time measurement. Why do you? That's a good question. Basically, we've measured this a lot of times with the both methods. We also are quite heavily involved in the measurement of the distinctive brand assets, as they do. And we believe that what General Manager was using there wasn't the best way of reaction time measurement, that not enough randomization, things like that. We've compared, especially, I think the best example here is with the brand assets. So they're using the spontaneous way to measure them, and then we were using the reaction times and the matrices. And let's say a lot of our brands are actually mid brands or even smaller brands. If you measure the spontaneous way, you typically don't get information that is practical, because the spontaneous mentions are pretty low. So if you're a big brand, it can be great. If you're a mid brand or smaller brand, definitely this sets the whole benchmarks a little bit higher, and it's quite similar to spontaneous reactions in this case. Definitely happy to talk about this with our research experts on this issue in much higher detail later. So I can see that you're anonymous, but I'll be happy to talk more about that into greater detail than here. About the AI, do you in Behavio work with synthetic panels? How it works actually, what to expect from the results, in which way it will be inaccurate? Well, the problem, as I mentioned, it's the synthetic panels. I think they are good for understanding your target group, because that is something more stable than brand awareness and what's happening in the market. So we're actually now planning to teach like synthetic panel from our we have a tool that has about thousands of informations about what the people do, what media they listen to, what are their favorite hobbies, which brands they buy, and that would be a great synthetic panel based on that. But still, I would use that for asking the AI about the target group. Asking the AI about the brand itself can be really tricky. I totally recommend asking often each of the models what they think about your brand, because as the models are becoming a part of our life, and a lot of the apps use them, it's important what AI thinks about your brand, even if that is something different from what people think about your brand. Because when the people will love your brand, but the AI will not, it can be a problem, because the AI is being a part of the conversations more and more. So I recommend both asking the big AI models what their brand perception, because that's not the reality, what they think about you, and on the other hand still have this representative sample-based surveys that are actually so far the only way how to see if something happened with your brand or your competitors within the last couple of months, and whether this is representative to the whole addressable market, because the only data that synthetic model can use are the actual mentions, and as we've seen at the beginning, the people who talk online about brands are not representative to the often much more lazy or light buyers, let's say. How does this data analysis work for SMEs, brands, or enterprises? That could be for a whole webinar. Let's say I've already mentioned that there can be some differences in the best methods of data collection, whether you're smaller or bigger, depending on how much spontaneous this can be. But also even the metrics that we recommend for every stage are different. So if you're a small brand, you should definitely start measuring your prompted awareness, and then adding one occasion for brand salience. You can have a additional strategy survey research that can help you, that can tell you what is the single one occasion that has the biggest opportunity for you, that you should start building the connection with, and then you measure this brand salience. While if you're enterprise, typically your prompted awareness is really high, and there's hardly anything going to change. And what you want to do is having the measuring the mental market share, which is something that really gives you the information where to grow and whether you're growing. How about samples? What is good enough size? What is solid and reliable size? It's hard to say one number. If I was to say one number, I would definitely say 1,000. That is typically the best ratio into how expensive it is and how precise it is. And of course, the higher the number of respondents, the lower the statistical error. But it's not linear. So if you're like basically going over 5,000, it doesn't make any sense, because you're paying much more and you're not getting much more accurate. We typically start with 500, which is like really affordable and also quite solid, meaning that the statistical error is somewhere around 3%. So if you're like 10% awareness, you can be sure that you're not 5, but you don't know whether you're 8 or 11. If you want to be get into higher detail, you need a bigger sample. And also, when you want to have a bigger sample is when you want to have some additional filtering of the data. For example, understanding whether women react somehow different on you, or the man, or whatever you want to have. So sometimes the lowest sample that some of our competitors do use is like 150 but then the error is really big. And we use 500 for each creative we test in ad testing, and with brand tracking, we have this 500 in the starter, and or can be 1,000 as well, and we have a 1,000 in the pro, and that we believe is the best value to money in most of the cases. And the last questions, or two of them, our customers are B2B, and we would need also to know situation for our brand. Is that also possible for B2B? Technically, everything I said applies to B2B as well, with the penetration and all the stuff that is the same for B2B. It's a typical mistake in B2B that companies are less likely to build awareness and to create substantial brand marketing. So everything applies to that, because there's like 95% out of the market in most of the time for B2B. So just 5% of people are in market, and you can directly convert them. Most of the others you have to really prepare with brand marketing to think of you when they're ready, when their contract is ending or anything like that. So that's for the principle. The bad part, of course, is that it's quite complicated to get the B2B panels. So we definitely have some B2B clients, but mostly they are like not so niche type of B2B. So for example, we can somehow survey the like small business owners or whatever, but if you're really specific niche, like a vertical within a, let's say for banks or whatever, it's not possible, definitely not as an automated tool. There are some companies trying to solve this. Hopefully this is going to be solved in a couple of years, but so far when you're B2B, it's typically not that easy to have brand tracking. We would love that as Behavio as well, and yeah, there's no one to do that, not even us, because it's really hard to get the representative sample of your target audience here. Any specifics for employer brand awareness tracking? Let me go back. We have quite a few customers who are tracking employer brand awareness with us. Let me think a little bit about that, about the projects. Frankly, I believe that it's more about the definition of the category and the type of the attributes that you're looking for. So because that's an important part for every brand tracking study, is how you define a category. So in most cases of the traditional brand tracking is when you want to have a meal with kids. You're thinking about that's the category definition. In the case of employer branding would be when you think about a great place to work, what brands would you have in mind? This obviously works for the biggest employers in the country typically. And most of the employer branding are the biggest enterprises. That's where it makes sense. If you're a mid-market company, you hardly get any reasonable metrics from this employer branding. And the other part is the type of attributes that would be definitely different, because the attributes should always somehow reflect the needs of the people. So in this case, the needs are not the great meal or affordable or fast. It's gonna be a freedom, a work-life balance or whatever. So you should always, in this case, have some idea from a prior research, or we do sometimes the strategy research before we do the first brand tracking wave. And so you somehow understand what are the drivers, what are the biggest motivators of the future, your future possible employees. And based on this, you want to measure them and understand whether the people associate those important motivators with you. Hope that helps. Too big brands and higher loyalty. Can the brand become big without addressing loyalty? So do you think it's a cause or a consequence? From everything we know, it's a consequence. And definitely brand can become big without addressing loyalty, unless there's some problem with the product. If you're selling something which is a fake product or whatever, and people will hate you afterwards, definitely that can be the only case I can imagine that you can grow on, because you have much lower loyalty than typical. But if there is no such barrier, if there is not a substantial significant problem with your product, then basically addressing just a penetration should help you grow a lot. And I'm not saying that you should not have a customer support line or whatever, and definitely you can create some like business effects with addressing loyalty. I'm definitely not discouraging you to have any. It's always when that's like, if you want to build a great product, you want to have happy customers. That's somehow natural for many companies, many employers. We're definitely doing that as well, but I would not suggest to think that this is a substantial growth strategy. It's like a tactical tool, and if you want to grow big, definitely much more of your attention should be focused on building penetration, not focusing on loyalty that much. Okay, seems that's all we have. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it brought something new or interesting, or at least some food for thought. We'd be so happy to hear back from you whether you liked it. So we're gonna send you a feedback survey, whatever. Please be honest. We'd be happy to learn and be better next time. Stay in touch. We're having more content. We're gonna be throwing a webinar on ad testing soon and other topics. So let's stay in touch. We also have quite a few free tools to use, not just those dashboards. We have brand asset cards that can help you inspire your brand creativity and other things. So check our sources. Please send us some feedback, and I'll be happy to meet you anytime soon. See you.